there is so much pressure from society and from other people and from ourselves, just what we think we need to be like and the things we think we need to do and how we think we need to look and even what type of parent we think we need to be. But in reality, like, we're changing, right? We're always moving forward. And so really focusing on that evolution and how beautiful and positive that is, rather than saying like, my abs don't look the same as they did before I had a baby. Yeah, of course they don't. But like, look at what you did. And there is a way to take that and to really, really capitalize on it and to say, I did this incredible thing and now I'm going to become stronger in so many ways, not just physically, right? Yeah. And that's a huge part of the baby body is taking that physical strength and that movement and channeling it in other ways. So like as a mom, like that's why people are always like, moms are superheroes. Yeah, they are. Not just because you birthed a child, because whether you birthed the child or not, you're doing all these things on any given day and literally like supporting another human life. Hi, I'm Laura Varney, founder of the Baby Body pre- and postnatal fitness class. I'm here on Everforward Radio, and today we talk about pre-postnatal fitness, what you may or may not be expecting regarding mental and physical health during pregnancy and postpartum, and just life lessons in general.
Laura, welcome to Everforward Radio. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
This is where I feel so special, privileged, blessed, all the above, to talk with people like you that are experts and or just a step or many steps further ahead of me in a lot of different ways. And today it's really going to be about stepping into what I am most excited for next in the coming months, fatherhood and being a dad and taking the relationship with my wife to that next place. And you've been there, and can we share the news you just shared with me?
Yeah, of course.
And you're going to be there again.
Yeah, I'm going to be there again.
Yeah, she's pregnant, everybody.
I'm pregnant. Yeah.
Pregnancy, though, is kind of scary, can be scary for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And I understand that's kind of what you're here to help us become unafraid of, right?
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Also, I'm very excited for you and your wife.
Thank
What's
you.
her name again?
May.
Ooh, beautiful name.
Yeah. Well, we both, technically she's Mastane and I'm James. We both go by our middle names. But May just kind of rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little easier.
Absolutely.
Okay. I love it. Yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah, pregnancy and postpartum can both be scary for people. Not only for the physical aspect, that's what I always hear about because I'm a pre-postnatal fitness expert, but also mental health wise, right? I would say probably the two most common times women come to me are when they're pregnant and saying, what can I do? Is this safe? Can I keep working out? I'm scared.
Yeah, I can only imagine the laundry list of questions.
Yeah. And that's so legit, right? Because especially with a first pregnancy, you don't want to do anything that might hurt your baby. Like that is the main and only concern you have, right? And then postpartum, it's like, how do I get back to what I used to be before I was pregnant? Which I'm here to tell you, it doesn't happen. You're not going to go back to what you used to be.
There's no going back, right?
No, but that's okay. That's okay. There's this huge just societal pressure to get back to that pre-pregnancy, whatever it might be, weight, look, etc. And for some reason, we've allowed society to tell us that our postpartum bodies and not bouncing back to the same look is a negative thing.
In a certain timeline too,
Right.
I'm sure, yeah.
Absolutely. And why? Why have we allowed that to happen, right? We're doing this thing with our bodies that is so incredible.
Insane.
If you really
Magic.
look at it, it's a miracle that it can even happen, right? And so to say that not being what we were prior to that is negative is just doesn't even make sense. But you can remain strong and insanely beautiful postpartum. You just have to know how to do it, right? That's my thought.
You bring up something that I think a lot of us can probably relate to. I can't relate to being pregnant or bouncing back after childbirth, but that aside, I mean, we all have gone through probably a physical change, or we've gone through a change in life of I'm shedding this version of myself that no longer serves me. I'm maybe literally shedding the pounds. I'm gaining weight, losing weight. I'm stepping into my higher self. That's what I try to talk about the most here on the show, is just these versions of ourselves that we're constantly in search of, and kind of going in deeper, really. I think they're all there. It's just we kind of get closer inward more and more. But it's kind of asinine, right, to think that if we're changing, especially physically, that we can ever go back to being the same. And quite literally, who you and I are today is not the same person biochemically, physiologically, well, maybe physiologically, but biochemically, for damn sure, that we were yesterday. We're constantly in change, right? So how can we actually wrap our head around there's no going back, and that's not a bad thing?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, right? Because we're in this fast-paced world where we're like moving forward. But for whatever reason, women especially have this pressure, internal and external, to look the way they used to look when they were younger. And it's just not the way it works.
To keep going forward, but hey, keep it one look back in the rearview mirror.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think having the knowledge and understanding how to keep your body strong, how to keep your body functional, and in turn, by doing those things, looking aesthetically pleasing, whatever that means to you, having that knowledge can kind of ease some of the discomfort and the stress that women might feel.
Is strong the same thing as functional? Those are two really interesting words that caught my attention.
No, not necessarily the same, because you can be strong and not functional. Yeah. For sure.
I know a lot of strong people that can barely bend over to tie their shoes, And being a functional human is kind of different than being a strong human, right?
Yes. So different. And throughout pregnancy and postpartum, functionality is so important.
What does that look like? Yeah.
So one of the main concerns, and this might be good information for you because your wife will become pregnant hopefully sometime within the next year or so.
Yeah.
Pelvic floor functionality, core functionality are huge parts of what we focus on during prenatal and postnatal, right? So prenatal, it's all about keeping the pelvic floor super strong and flexible. So that's the functionality we talk about, right?
Okay.
So a lot of people think that you hear Kegels all the time, which is like the strength part, right?
It's just like,
I know, I'm like doing whatever. And that's such a small portion of what you have to do, okay? So just like any other muscle, we want lengthening and strength. So if you think about it, when a woman is in labor, her pelvic floor has to stretch, right?
We hope.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be pliable in order to give birth if you're, having a vaginal delivery. But so there's that part of it. And then there's also understanding how to really engage the core muscles, because one of the main things we talk about postpartum is that ab separation, right? So I'm sure you know about the core, which is like rectus abdominis, those six-pack muscles that we all see.
Oh, my anatomy background's flying in, but also my wife is a family nurse practitioner, so all the clinical stuff she tells me about,
she knows.
It's like I'm seeing like on an anatomy display, but also like her textbooks, and it's kind of traumatic. This stuff is very real.
It is. So there is a tissue right in between those six-pack muscles called the linea alba. So that tissue is also pliable and made to stretch and go back together. If we know how to properly engage the core throughout pregnancy, then it will not separate as much as, some other
So we can really prime that for the toll we're about to demand from it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that in those postpartum, those weeks, months postpartum, it kind of naturally starts to come back together.
So is core work what you would maybe recommend someone to focus on first if they're thinking about getting pregnant? Let's kind of maybe backtrack just a little bit before we get to what to do while and what's safe and what's realistic. What can someone do before that they should be doing?
That's a great question. So for sure, I mean, if you know that you're in that phase of your life and you have the education and you're like, I'm going to start priming my core, that's never going to hurt, right? Yeah. But if you have a pretty active lifestyle, doing that during pregnancy is also going to be okay. Like you can work on it to make it strong enough. The thing we want to focus on more so pre-pregnancy is really that mind-body connection, understanding how to really tap into those deep inner core muscles, which, believe it or not, a lot of people, even people who work out daily, might not really have that connection. It can be hard to kind of create, instead of just focusing on those six-pack muscles that we're talking about, really focusing on those transverse abdominals, those deep core muscles, and tapping into those and knowing how to create that kind of like wrap around corset effect that really holds everything in and keeps everything super strong, so we don't have that intra-abdominal pressure later pushing out against the linea alba.
Think about it. Maybe those of you that are listening, like, oh yeah, I work out, I'm active, but are you doing pretty much everything seated? Are you doing mostly machines, or are you doing things that require head to toe engagement, complete kinetic chain? Are you doing overhead pressing standing? Are you doing compound movements like a deadlift or a squat? Something that to really get it dialed in and to really be safe while doing the maneuver, you got to be engaging that core.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like you can be doing your fitness thing, but it's like good for you, but especially if you're going to be thinking about getting pregnant or even just getting the most bang for your buck in the gym or at your home workout, just changing it up. Like just doing things standing is already engaging your core on a whole nother level.
So different. And those machines are great for people who, either older people or people who don't know necessarily what to do in the gym. It's a great way to kind of start learning.
Here's bicep curl machine.
Exactly.
Yeah, here's pec deck. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. But once you have the knowledge and kind of understand how to move your body, really working with free weights and that kind of thing is so much more beneficial.
So you would really recommend before going into pregnancy, if that's on your radar, to focus more on these kind of movements that are engaging core, just I would say passively, but it's pretty active on top of maybe some of these other core specific workouts.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And here's the thing. I have a recommendation for what I think is like a well-rounded week of exercise.
What's that? You can't drop that and not share, all right?
Well, I'm saying
what works for you?
But also, that being said, I think the most important thing is it's what you really like to do, because that's what you're going to stick with, right?
Adherence ultimately is like, how do we get you adherent?
Yeah, because the main thing you hear people say is like, they're not consistent. Consistency is key. So if I tell you, I think you should be strength training 3 to 4 times a week, doing Pilates once, yoga once, and like low impact cardio twice a week.
That'd be ideal.
That would be amazing. Yeah. But 99% of people are not going to do that.
So. I this year have incorporated, I made it a goal to at least do yoga once a week. And I've been doing this I've had a wellness routine, a training routine for like 17, 18 years now. And even I, at this point, need to kind of pay for accountability. So I joined this recovery center that has a lot of other things that I like IR sauna and cryo, but also came with unlimited yoga. So to make sure that I hit that, like I'm paying to make sure I at least go once a week to yoga. And it has carried over tremendously into my daily living, but all my other lifts and everything that I love to do. So even someone who has it as a routine has to find new motivators to keep it adherent. And
Absolutely.
It's been incredible.
Absolutely. The external motivation is such a big help.
So then what about when we get into the pregnancy phase? And I'm guessing by each trimester, maybe there are things that are best, better, not recommended for safety, strength, and functionality?
Yes, absolutely. So once you get pregnant, usually in the first trimester, you can continue doing what you've been doing as long as it's nothing that's going to like impact your stomach, For a lot of people, the first trimester is really tough because you're exhausted. You might be nauseous. You might be throwing up every day. Who knows? Food aversions. So the first trimester can be a little bumpy for a lot of people. So give yourself grace. take it easy on yourself. But if you feel up to it, continue doing what you were doing.
Okay. Like same frequency, intensity, rep scheme, more or less, kind of?
Yep.
Okay.
And there used to be a recommendation that like they said, don't get your heart rate above 140 or something. That's kind of out the window now, thank goodness.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, that's really hard, by the way, especially when you're pregnant.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of thinking, like, I was looking at my Apple Watch through my workout today, and like, I don't even think I hit that. Yeah.
It's
consistently.
And I mean, if you're doing anything, even if you're just like playing tennis and you sprint once, it might go above 140.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, that's something that's totally safe. So I think that's why they say like, don't worry about that anymore. Other things, laying on your back. So there's a recommendation, 2nd and 3rd trimester, to avoid laying on your back for long periods of time.
And why is that?
So you might get dizzy. It might cut off some of the circulation. So here's the thing, though. A lot of people feel totally fine for short periods of time. So there's a couple of things you can do. You can kind of test it out. Because, I mean, if you think about it, in your sleep, a lot of times we roll over on our back. But you'll start to notice when you're pregnant, your body automatically wakes you up after a certain period of time and you roll over on your side. So that's your body telling you like, okay, let's...
Hey, no.
Yeah.
Let's move it along.
But you can either prop your head, neck, and shoulders up with a pillow to take some of the pressure off, or you can lay on your back for a couple minutes is usually totally fine. The other things, you don't want to do like deep twists, like in yoga, certain twists that we do, like a chair pose twisting here. You don't want to do because that will put a lot of pressure on the belly. Things like that, you're going to kind of avoid.
Okay.
No, obviously ab crunching movements, which is so funny because I hear people talk about crunches all the time now and they're like, everyone does crunches. And I'm like, do they? I feel like crunches are so old now. People don't do crunches.
I haven't really done a crunch in forever. I mean, then we kind of prove that it's really not the most effective abdominal movement, really any. And most people are doing them so incorrect. You're actually straining your neck. You're pulling things that shouldn't be pulled.
That's the thing.
And you can kind of cheat the movement a lot as well.
Right. That's the thing, right? Is there are so many other things you can do that are so much more effective. And they're fine if you really know how to engage the core. I did a bicycle crunch for the first time a few weeks ago, and I was that's weird.
That's a spicy meatball.
But it felt kind of good. Like, you just have to really listen to your body, So, yeah.
And one thing that I see you do during pregnancy and just while being a busy mom that I thought was so admirable is you post a lot on your content about how you're just doing what you can, where you can, when you can. And I can only imagine, I won't be pregnant, but during that time of immense physical change, and we haven't even gotten into the mental and emotional aspect yet of, you can feel probably great on top of the world one day, and the next day you're just like, what the hell happened? Again, total speculation, but you're nodding your head, so we're in the right direction. And again, it comes back to adherence. And we know, we'll make the statement now that taking care of your body and your mind at all times is great for you, but especially during pregnancy, because now you're responsible for this growing life. And I see you with a little munchkin like climbing all over you, and you're on your mat doing your movements, trying to just do what you can. I'm sure it's probably frustrating, but also have to imagine like maybe it's more core engaging, like holding your son away, Can you kind of shine a light on that? Because I think that is what I would expect most women to struggle with the most of, I can't do what I used to do. I can't do it as much or as often or with my friends or at this location. And so a lot of times especially our physical fitness, if we can't do what we like to do and we know has yielded us past results, then it's kind of like all or nothing. But that's not you, and you're still kicking ass while being a mom at home. Like your yoga mat is in the middle of a, no offense, hot mess. Yeah. And I'm sure
with big Duplos and cars.
But that's life, and you're kicking ass along the way.
Yeah. So that's a huge part of it. Even more so like once you have a kid and then you're pregnant again. But even if you're not pregnant, like before having a child, I was always like, if it's important to you, you'll make it happen. You know what I mean? Like I always make it happen. And you just have to, you do these things so you can fit in a workout. You know, that was always kind of my mindset.
Naivete.
Yeah,
for sure.
But I'm sure you probably feel the same.
Yeah.
You know, and that's legit before you have another human being to take care of. And then all of a sudden it becomes, oh, well, he has to nap now and I have to feed him at this time and then I have to feed him again and then he's got to nap again. And holy shit, like when am I supposed to fit in a workout? And so a lot of times that does end up like rolling out your yoga mat and getting on the nursery floor and doing some glute bridges or whatever it might be and just saying like, hey, we'll take a walk later in the park. And no, that's not what I used to do. And no, maybe I didn't work up this crazy sweat, which, by the way, is also when you're used to doing that all the time can really kind of mess with your mindset.
If I'm not sweating, then I'm not getting an effective workout.
Totally.
Yeah.
But there's also something to be said, and I learned this during like postpartum, about really moving with intention because nothing slows you down more than having a baby and having your stomach sliced open, you know?
Yeah.
So really moving with intention.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell my moms about, like just with learning that core engagement, prenatal and postnatal, because I mean, before I got pregnant again, my abs had never been stronger or more visible than they were postpartum. And
really?
All of that exercise was very slow. Very like intentional breath work.
You weren't
like
doing a lot of crunches?
No, I wasn't like doing 50 crunches in the morning. So it's really, there's something to be said about that too, right? For people like us who are used to either throwing weight around or doing super high intensity exercise, it can be different, but like you just have to do what you can. You really do.
That was the bitter pill I had to swallow the truth. I'm sure you can relate maybe during COVID. So many of us lost our gyms. We lost our norm. And for a while, I didn't know it was going to last 2 years or whatever, lockdowns. But it's like, oh, if I can't deadlift, if I can't go to my gym and do my routine at my time, then I'm not going to do it. You know, what am I going to do? Some push-ups and wall squats in my apartment or whatever, which I really had to, like I said, swallow that bitter pill of I need to face the music. Life, the world, my world is different right now. And also it was another opportunity to kind of work through some ego work. I think there's probably ego attached to, I mean, we all probably had a little bit of that during COVID, what we could do. And maybe even, I don't know, you can tell me as a mom, you know, there's still ego attached to my way of life, my expectations, my body ultimately. But the ego wants to hold on to that and really just like dig its heels. But life is changing. Like we were just talking about, the world is changing. Our world is changing.
I love that you take that experience and say, let me check my ego. You know what I mean? Because that's really looking inward. And it's that with everything we do, right?
Oh, yeah.
Especially once you have kids. You go like, oh, he can't do anything without me. And then you see him with the nanny and you're like, oh, he's fine. Like, what the hell? This isn't right. And you just have to realize like, it's not all about you. It never is, you know? So it's really cool that you do that. But as far as being a mom, I could have, there were times for sure when I was like pregnant and I'm like, oh, I'm pregnant during the pandemic. Oh, this sucks. But then it's also like, oh, but I'm also at home with my family who I love. And like, you can take it in a different direction and like work with what you have. I was very lucky because I did already have a lot of equipment and some kettlebells.
Oh, you're one of those people. So. I was like fighting people off to get the 1 5-pound dumbbell I could find at Target.
Oh my gosh, it was so crazy. I was also ordering things on Amazon and wherever, and it was weeks and months delayed.
I'm glad we're through that mess now.
Yeah.
But to kind of bring up the other aspect, you know, whether it's ego, but just the mindset, the mental and emotional component to this change, your life changing. What unique kind of highlight do you want to have for us there? Because the physical stuff, okay, cool. We can work on it. We can implement it. We can change. But that's only going to take us so far, right? We've got to work on this, probably this and this.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were kind of talking about this before we started recording. And it's just like there is so much pressure from society and from other people and from ourselves, just what we think we need to be like and the things we think we need to do and how we think we need to look and even what type of parent we think we need to be. But in reality, like we're changing, right? We're always moving forward. And so really focusing on that evolution and how beautiful and positive that is rather than saying like, my abs don't look the same as they did before I had a baby. Yeah, of course they don't. But like, look at what you did. And there is a way to take that and to really, really capitalize on it and to say, I did this incredible thing and now I'm going to become stronger in so many ways, not just physically, right?
Yeah.
And that's a huge part of the baby body is taking that physical strength and that movement and channeling it in other ways. So like as a mom, like that's why people are always like, moms are superheroes. Yeah, they are. Not just because you birthed a child, because whether you birthed the child or not, you're doing all these things on any given day and literally like supporting another human life. So taking that and channeling it into like, I am so strong physically and mentally and like, and showing that to your child. You know what I mean? Portraying that in every aspect of life. You're not going to be perfect every day, but like there's so much of that that can happen. And I just think too often we focus on like, oh no, postpartum or after having a baby, I'm going to change so much. Yeah, great. Like that can be a great thing instead of focusing on the negative, you know?
What maybe has been a surprise realization for you? Like, I am not this way anymore, but I've realized I have this instead. I have developed, created, reinforced this strength as a human being, as a woman, as a mom. Let's focus on what we gained instead of what we lost, right? I'm sure if someone followed you around every day, you could probably create a great list. It's probably those things you don't even fully realize, right?
Well, this is something I kind of battle every day, every week. Yesterday was one of those days for me. Because what I do, and I think the same as you, because what I do is genuinely my passion. Like I don't wake up and go to a 9-to-5 job that I'm doing to make money. I literally am doing something I love every day as my career. And so that used to be something that I put all of my effort into, all of my time, all of my sweat, most of my love.
All your identity too, I'm sure.
Yes, 100%. I was fitness. Like that was my thing, you know?
Yep. Yeah.
And now, you know, 75% of that has shifted to I'm a mom. Like I am a mom and I don't hate it. I love it. It's amazing. Like I've gained this new perspective on life, like seeing life through this little kid's eyes is like the coolest thing ever.
I can just see it in your face. For everybody watch the video for this one for sure. Like as you're talking, like you're lighting up in a totally different way.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. I cannot wait for you guys. Like I'm so stoked on this. But I think that that's one of the biggest things is like when my identity was more my career, fitness, I was around like some of the most incredible trainers in this city. And I was so inspired by them every day.
Sure.
And everyone seemed to have their niche. You know, there were these guys who were like the super science guys. And I didn't fit in with that. I was kind of like, you guys are amazing, but like, it's not my vibe.
No one cares about the Krebs cycle right now, okay? We can generate ATP in a lot of ways. We get it.
Yeah, exactly, okay? It's like I love listening to it and learning, but it's just not my thing. I'm also a yoga teacher, and I was around a lot of yogis all the time, and like that's just not my vibe either. I love to teach. I love to take yoga classes, but like I'm not fully devoted to, fully devoted to yoga. So I kind of always felt like I didn't know my place. And then it's like, I became pregnant, really started focusing on postnatal. And I hear so many women who are like, I lost myself. I don't know who I am once they became pregnant. And it was like, for me personally, both personally and professionally, I was like, oh, like this is it. This is where I'm supposed to be. Like, I feel at home now.
Yeah.
I've found my niche, you know? And so I guess that's what I've gained.
I love that answer. And to all my non-pregnant listeners and viewers out there, that is really what like I'm after the most in talking with people like yourself is we can all kind of agree that there's this common thread, this common mindset of looking for the advantage in the adversity. That if we choose that in a moment can just unfold so many opportunities that were missed before. The situation hasn't changed. Our circumstances have not changed. The only thing that did was just how we looked at it.
Totally.
And especially going back to like ego and the self, I think that is another universal carryover of how much of ourselves do we have wrapped up in this new conflict in life? How much of it really is a conflict and it's really just us being resistant to change and not wanting to let go of ourselves. And like everybody will get there on their own time, but that's ultimately what I think has to happen. The choice for the mindset shift and then another choice of letting go of who you were yesterday, who you were last year.
Yeah.
And choosing to step into these new opportunities, and especially when it involves another life, you know?
Yeah. It all comes down to perspective. It really does. And like I tell my husband that all the time because he goes more towards like a negative. I don't know, maybe guys are like this in general, but he goes
lay it on me. Let's see.
He goes more towards like a negative. He knows this. He says this. I would never just say this about him.
We'll have a follow-up so he can have his side of the story, okay?
And I think also it's like more realism sometimes, but like he goes towards the negative where I usually go towards the positive.
Yeah.
And so I always say, and I have to have him remind me of this too, but like it's all perspective when you really think about it. Like, sure, we can be in these really tough situations and there are always external factors that we might not be able to control. But at the end of the day, if we can kind of shift our perspective, we can make the situation what we choose it to be, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does. Absolutely. And there are two books that I'll kind of recommend for you and also for the audience here. I'll have it listed down in the show notes that I think really embody this, that have been instrumental for me in these two unique areas. Both Ryan Holiday, Ego is the Enemy and Obstacle is the Way. I mean, take that going into your pregnancy, take that going into anything, just where you are, wherever you are in life right now, read those books. Especially Ego is the Enemy. If I could only give one book recommendation forever for everyone, it would be that book.
I need to reread. I read it such a long time ago, and I need to reread it because it's been a while. I try to reread Ego is the Enemy every year. Yeah. That one every January, plus this other book on like goal setting and accountability called The One Thing, are kind of my, all right, I know these things, I've got them into my practice, but let me just really go back. It's what I love going back to, the fundamentals, or just things that helped me years ago in my initial kind of transformation of self. Again, the ego is always going to be there, right? Life's always going to be there. So if we can come back to center of what worked for us before, not to say it's going to always work for us, but it can remind us of these principles that worked for us before, and just to like really come back to these fundamental truths of perspective, mindset shift. Yep. And you can even take that down to being like super basic if you want to think of it on a very basic level, and just take like these general concepts, like, off the top of your head, 3 to 5 things that put you in that positive space or in that like motivated space, right? Yeah. For most people, they're very similar things, right? For most people, it's like movement, sleep, like creating some type of to-do list or structure, right? And fueling your body in a specific way. Like for most people, even if they don't know it, it's pretty similar. And so if you can tap into those super basic things most days, you're setting yourself up for success. Just, basic human needs, like at the human level, but also your level. Build those into as many days in a row as possible. I guarantee you'll have way more success. You'll have a lot more to fall back on because you know that your like infrastructure is kind of taken care of. Yeah. And it seems so basic and elementary, but at the end of the day, because of the way things are now, we're constantly like this. We're constantly bombarded with things and doing things that aren't serving us. Oh, yeah. And that are like time sucks.
Weapons of mass distraction.
Yeah.
I heard years ago. I love that term.
So true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And we should say, like, when I said doing this, I meant putting my face in my phone.
For those not watching the video,
I forget that sometimes it's a podcast. Yeah.
So what's unique now going into, this is your second child?
Mm-hmm.
What maybe checks have you had to make of, because you've clearly done a lot of work for, all right, this is who I was before being pregnant, who I am during, what it's like to be mom. Are you finding yourself having any new comparisons maybe, or now that you have a precedent kind of set of this is what it was like before, I assume it's going to be like this again. What are you working through now for round 2?
Yeah, it's so different. And I have to say, because I said this is my second child, technically my third. I have a stepson too who feels like my child, but I didn't birth him, so I don't want to say he's like
your second birth
my second
child. There we
baby.
go.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for me, it's so different because, like I said, before I was all career, right? Now it's like these two things, that the kids and the career on top of each other. And with my first pregnancy, it was constant planning. And your wife, I'm sure, will go through the same thing when she's pregnant. It's like you read all these books about having the baby, about what you should do during pregnancy, what you do when the baby comes. You're constantly thinking about it, right?
Oh,
and
yeah,
preparing and planning.
Preparing, yeah.
Yes. And then you have your second pregnancy, and like some days I forget that I'm pregnant because I'm in my second trimester, so I'm past like the
So it's kind of like your norm at this point.
Semi. And you're doing all these, you're running around after another kid, and then all of a sudden I'm like, why am I so tired? Oh my God, I'm
There's
pregnant.
another one of you in here. Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of that. And then you also have this pressure of like, for myself, at least I'm speaking for myself, I'm kind of hard on myself. Yesterday was a day, like I said, where I just felt like, so I have part-time help. I have a part-time nanny, which is such a blessing. And I feel so lucky to have that. And usually on the days when she's not there, I'm able to totally focus on Roka, my son, and the work is on the days when she's there. But yesterday was one of these days where I had like deadlines and also needed to do things. And
you were a
like,
full-time mom.
Yeah.
Same day, yeah.
And I felt like, oh my God, I'm just totally mediocre at everything I do.
Oh no.
Which is like the worst feeling. You know what I mean?
It could be a negative self-talk spiral, I'm assuming.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. And I think especially as moms, dads do it too, parents in general, we just go like second guess ourselves. We should have done this differently, or I should have been more present, or, all of those things. And I think just taking the time to really be easier on ourselves.
Grace again.
And I'm talking to myself right now, and just say like, okay, maybe that wasn't the best. Like that scenario when he was eating breakfast and you were like shooting out emails on your phone wasn't ideal and how you would normally like to do it. Okay, let's go to the park and like forget that happened. You know what I mean? And listen, everyone deals with it, whether you have a kid or not, just like juggling different things. It's a challenge, and that's life,
Yeah, it truly is.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
Yeah.
Then you just throw a hot mess express on your hands for the next 18 plus years,
Yep.
I want to ask, is there a piece of advice? Everything you've been sharing thus far has been great. Is there a singular piece of advice that you want to give to me, to that first time parent getting ready for already, are pregnant, that you think has served you the most, or maybe is more like universal for the first timer?
But it's something you've probably heard a million times before.
The best advice usually is, right?
Try to be as present as you can for all of it, even the not so fun parts. Whether that's during the pregnancy when you feel like, there are times when you're going to feel like a cow, not you, your wife, and you might look amazing.
She told me I'm already supposed to gain all the same sympathy with her, so we'll be loving cows together.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
And you might look amazing, but you just don't feel great. Like you're uncomfortable, you're waddling around, whatever.
Can't get comfortable.
Yeah, I can't get comfortable, but just try to there's also something beautiful in that, right? Like obviously you're creating something amazing. And then when the kid's there, like it's so hard sometimes in the beginning when you're so tired. You're so tired. But like, I don't know, just remembering that like, and it sounds sad, but it's not. Like, try to think of this in a beautiful way. Like, tomorrow, like you're never going to repeat that moment, and they change so fast that it's like, just try to soak up what it is now. Even if he's waking up 7 times in the night, it's only going to last like a short period of time. And then it's going to change again, and he's going to be sleeping, and like he, she, whatever. Like, it's just everything evolves so rapidly that the one thing I would say is just like try to be in it as much as you can, because it's the coolest thing you will ever experience, in my opinion.
I cannot wait for it. And I love that piece of advice. Again, I think a lot of what you've been sharing thus far is great for what we're talking about, but also there's a lot of extraction we can do for wherever we are in life. Mindfulness, being present, being here now, being where your 2 feet are, whether you have a kid, whether you're single, whether you're a student, an executive, whatever, being here now more is only going to serve you more.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, I'm 35 years old, and I think looking back on my life, that's like the one thing I would have told myself when I was younger.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe like drink less in college, but also like...
You can have soda water. No one will know the difference.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But also like be in it. Stop thinking about like what's going to happen later and stressing about what's going to happen later so much. And like, just, yeah, I would definitely tell myself that. That,
and the piece of advice that I wish I could give myself years ago was to like permission to feel everything. So much of, not to open up my can of trauma worms, but like it's really so much suppression. And look, my life is my life, and I've gone through stuff just like you. But even in this example of being pregnant, I would assume a mom maybe is not going to allow herself, not going to give herself permission to feel the things of like regret, resentment, or like anything that resembles that in like a negative light, you probably are going to suppress, right? Because I'm so mad at myself for feeling that way. How can I? Like, I don't want any of that. But look, like we've been talking about, you're changing your body, your mind, everything is changing. So find a way to allow yourself, give yourself permission to feel those things, but in a healthy outlet.
Yeah.
I think is definitely what I would have wished to give myself years ago.
Such a good one, especially like in your 20s. Mm-hmm. That's a really good one.
Well, kind of coming to my final question, to wrap it all up, whether we're pregnant, whether we're not, we're all here to learn from someone who's in a unique place in their life, that we can take something at least and apply it to our life, to move forward in our life, to live a life ever forward, I say. So I always ask my guests, what does that mean to you? How do you live a life ever forward?
Living a life ever forward.
Have more kids.
Just keep having kids. No, I think we might
be a baby factory. Yes.
I think I just really want to continue to help other moms. But I think moving forward to me really means showing everyone around me like how amazing they are and how much I love them. And that might sound a little cheesy, but I think it's just the most incredible thing. Like, that's how I feel about my mom. My mom was such is such a loving, kind, patient person. And like anyone who comes in contact with her will say that. Anyone. And I always get off the phone with her or leave her, and I'm just like, God, I hope people feel that way about me one day. Like, that's just so cool,
I love that. I love that feeling.
What about you?
Ooh, I would really agree with that. In a lot of ways, that's that exact sensation. What you're talking about is why and how I'm here doing what I'm doing now. Everforward, I think I shared with you the backstory. It comes from my late father. And that was exactly what he did for everybody else, whether it was a stranger, his own family, anybody that he met, long term or for a first time, walked away just in a better mood about themselves and about life than they did going into it. And you could even be like, I feel great. And then you meet Chuck And then, he just has a way of making you feel even more great,
So cool.
And that's, how he lived a life ever forward, and his mantra that he instilled in us growing up. And it's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing. And even I think that's a really unique point too, of so many of us when we're talking about or listening to stuff like this, right? We struggle sometimes, I definitely did, of trying to find the thing that makes the most sense for me. Like, okay, I want to get better. I want to be a better person. I want to read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, but I can't quite nail down my passion, my purpose. I think that is a great way to kind of give yourself a little bit of grace, but also to put yourself in the right environment, in the right mindset to maybe really find that. Take it off yourself. Mm-hmm. Instead of trying to like you do you and better you, what if you just tried to do everybody else, make everybody else better, And along the way, you're definitely going to feel something. You're going to feel better about yourself. And I guarantee you're probably going to get some really unique feedback as to how you do that. Like, hey, the way that you say this, the way that you connected me to this person, the way that you wrote this, the way that you designed that could be a great calling. Reminds me of something else I say a lot, and that's your ordinary is somebody else's extraordinary. Like, pay attention to the gifts that others already receive from you. And that's where I think a lot of us find our passion, find our purpose. Mm-hmm. It's staring at us in the face, but it's just our norm, so we don't really see it as anything special.
Yeah, I love that. That's so awesome.
Like, you for asking. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, all of your information we're going to have down in the show notes and video notes for everybody, but where you're hanging out the most, where can they connect with you, and like how specifically are you helping others, kind of go through this stuff?
Yeah, of course. So you can find me obviously on Instagram. My personal account is at Miss Laura Varney. I think I share mostly there. The Baby Body Instagram is at the Baby Body, and so that's where you'll find out like when new classes come up. New classes come every week.
Fitness classes or
yes.
Okay.
So the Baby
specifically
Body
for a pregnant mom.
Correct. So pre and postnatal. So the Baby Body is thebaby-body.com, and there you can find workouts for all three phases of all three trimesters of pregnancy, 6-week postpartum rehab, and then workouts for moms, whether you are 3 months postpartum or 3 years postpartum.
Ooh,
we have
right.
something for everyone. We have 5 different class types, different intensity levels, different equipment used or no equipment.
I'll have to take a note from May. Yeah. She's always hopping around in different classes. So might change up a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, this was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.